Pat Mayo Hour.
Welcome to the Pat Mayo Hour DraftKings DFS preview for Fight Night Vegas. Cody Saffedine in studio with me to help me break this down. We had a week off. Now, last time we had a 3-week losing streak. We got a week off, came back, two-week winning streak.
We're currently on a 2-week winning streak,
now,
so let's get these good times going.
I don't know if we needed the break. I feel like we may have killed the momentum of the show.
Yeah, hopefully not. Hopefully not.
Yeah, but we've had some good cashes the last 2 weeks, too, so I'm very excited about that.
I've come to realize the last 2 weeks, the one was, good team, and then Willie Gates kind of hurts it a little bit. Last week, great team, Rob Font hurts it a little bit. So it's all about just kind of taking out that one guy.
Listen, it's hard when you're dealing with the fact that you're forced to take underdogs and to fill out a roster. It's hard to go 5 of 5. If you're going 4 or 5, you're going to win.
Yes, yeah. But we've been killing cash games. We've been doing good in GPP, but I'd love to kill a GPP.
Yeah, let's kill a GPP. We haven't had a big GPP win. I won, I think it was $1,500, $1,000, whatever it was, on a $9 buy-in back in February with the lineup you gave me. So let's see if we can replicate that. I know a lot of people won that week, too. We got a lot of love for once for that.
Yeah, for sure. So,
if people don't know, I don't know a ton about MMA, but I do know a lot about daily fantasy. So every time you hear me mispronounce a name, you're going to hear... And then you'll correct me, and we'll get on. You, on the other hand, know all about the MMAs, not just the UFC, though. What the hell were we watching on the weekend? That guy who was in jail and then got his ass beat by some local?
Vitor FC. Oh, yeah. This weekend was great.
We had Mayhem. Was that his name? Mayhem?
Mayhem Miller.
Yeah, he did not look good.
He has 2 shot knees, first of all.
He kept falling down.
Yeah, because both of his knees are shot. He would just stand up real quick and just fall down.
Let's get to the main event. Almeida versus Garbrandt. Garbrandt's 9,200. Almeida is 10-2. 5-round fight. Is it a championship fight?
No, just main event.
Just main event, so still 5 rounds?
Yeah.
Is there a quick finish to be had here?
You know what? To be perfectly honest with you, Cody Garbrandt's 8-0. He's only ever been to decision once in his entire career. Almeida is 21-0. He's also only been to decision once in his career. So logic dictates surely someone's going to get finished. It is 5 rounds, so they do got some time to deal with. I personally think Cody Garbrandt will win this fight. And if he wins this fight, he's either going to get it late or he's going to get it by decision. That's not worth playing. You do got to play Almeida on a GPP team. He's got 20 finishes and 21 fights, man. He's a GPP dream, Pat.
That is, and I think that's a good way to put it. Right now, Almeida's minus 160 on the odds. Obviously, he is the betting favorite, but the way that you just described it makes a lot of sense to me for a GPP play. You're not convinced he's going to win, but if he is going to win, which the odds say that he is going to win, then it's going to be quicker rather than later.
Exactly, and you know what? It's not even just he gets the finish. It's man, this guy throws flying knees, and he throws head kicks, and he throws spinning stuff, and he is just whatever he wants to use, he uses. He's very versatile. He's a young kid, but in being that he's a young kid, he's creative, and he'll just try whatever. So we've seen in fights where he's gotten hit a bunch of times, got a good chin on him, he gets hit a bunch of times, and then he'll just throw something spectacular and knock his opponent out. So as I mentioned, cash game, I'd stay away from this guy, because there's a large chance that Cody Garbrandt's able to grind him out, use his wrestling, use his technical boxing, and just kind of edge this guy out. But for GPP, this is actually what we're looking for. 10-3, not a bad price.
No, and especially if people think the same way that you do, that Garbrandt actually has a very live shot of winning this fight. Is that what people are saying, or people saying that Almeida's going to win?
No, people like Almeida because of the way he finishes guys, but Cody Garbrandt's got 2 things going for him. 1, he's kind of like a hot young name, undefeated, getting some hype, being an alpha male. 2, he was dating that Paige Van Zandt, who was
on Dancing with the Stars.
Just recently finished second on Dancing with the Stars. And everybody loves her, and therefore he's had some of that rub off him. But he broke little Paige's heart. And I think for that reason, people are turning against him and want Almeida. But it's such a close fight, to be honest.
But around the office, Paul, Robin, Ramdean, Pollock, who were they taking?
I think they're all taking Almeida.
So Garbrandt might be not so popular if you want to put him on a team, maybe?
I think
if you're going to play 5 lineups, would it be worth it to put him on one of those teams, Garbrandt?
Yes and no. Yes, because do I think he can win? I'm the guy saying, yeah, I do absolutely think he can win. The other thing is, the reason I think he can win is because he's got a very little-known wrestling pedigree that he keeps tucked away in his back pocket that he doesn't really use. And that's his path to victory. But for guys that are playing some DraftKings, we don't really want him to use that little tucked-away path to victory, take the guy down, hold him down. Yeah, we want rock 'em, sock 'em robots here. And what we've seen from Almeida is that he can play that game and have lots of effectiveness doing it. So as I mentioned, if you want to play a DraftKings team, if you want to play a fantasy MMA team, you're looking for the big points. And as you mentioned right at the top of the show, you need to take that risk. No, he's not a dog we're taking a risk on, but he's one of those favorites that we're really banking on that he'll do something spectacular.
Oh, this is going to be a fun one. Rick Story.
You got that one.
Against Tarec Saffedine.
Saffedine.
Damn!
I know. Close. The sponge.
Why? Because he takes shots?
I think it's because he's good at like absorbing knowledge.
That would not seem to go hand in hand with taking shots in the head all the time, absorbing the knowledge.
Yeah. Well, you know, so he was a Belgian kickboxing champion, and then he just like, I'm moving to America to learn how to wrestle. So he shows up at this Team Quest, Dan Henderson, the best guys. Not necessarily the best wrestlers on terms of like paper, like Olympic wrestling, but like the grind, the MMA grind. So now you can't really take this guy down, and you can't really stand with him. So he's become so versatile, but he does have holes in his games. He's a tad bit chinny, and he's a tad bit hesitant on letting his strikes go.
They're both $9,700 on DraftKings. Story's actually the underdog in terms of the betting lines at plus 110, but you like Story.
I do like Story.
Tell me a story, Cody.
I will tell you a story. Rick Story has not fought in 2 years. That I do not like. His last time out, he fought Gunnar Nelson, who we talk about all the time. Gunnar Nelson, who's Icelandic. You did
it for yourself.
Super tough guy. And Rick Story not only beats him, but I mean, I thought he beat him like handedly. Like it ended up being a split decision, but that's simply because I believe the fight was in Sweden and they were going to go with the Icelandic guy. But Rick Story has got the goods. The only issue is he's been off for 2 years. Now he's a little bit older.
Why has he been off for 2 years?
Injuries.
With what though?
I think he believed he hurt his hand initially, and then he just pulled out of a couple fights. Kind of hanging out. 2 years though is a long time.
It's a long training camp.
Yeah, I mean, if he was training the whole time. The thing is that I believe he lives in Oregon still, and he's training out of the MMA lab in Arizona, and they were helping him a lot. As I mentioned, his last fight was one of the best fights that he's had in a long time. So Rick, the Horror, which is his name, the Horror Story, he looked fantastic. Now, when you're injured, you're not living in Arizona. You're going back home to where your family is and kind of rehabbing and using your home gym. So has he made a bunch of massive improvements since then? I don't know. Good wrestler, good striking, super resilient guy. Tarec Saffedine, I initially was picking Tarec Saffedine because, as I mentioned, you can't take the guy down, and you can't stand with him for the most part. Not because he's so good at stand-up, but like he's long, he's rangy, he uses very smart strikes. He will kick you until the cow comes home. Like this guy will kick you all day long. The problem is, like a week ago, I'm reading the fight's off. The fight's in jeopardy. The fight's off. I was like, why is I look into it. They say, well, the fight hasn't been officially removed by the UFC, but Tarec Saffedine received a cut on his leg, and he did an interview saying, I'm probably out of it. I'm more than likely.
So do we expect this
fight
to be canceled?
No, because apparently the UFC doctor checked him out and was just like,
no, you're fine.
Yeah, you're fine. So now that the doctor's like, you're fine, he can't be like, I'm not fine. Whoa, I'm a fighter. Fighters fight. I got to go in there. So once the fight starts, he's not going to feel the laceration on his leg. But I think mentally, he's like tad bit checked out. A tad bit. And I thought this was going to be a real close fight to begin with. Now that's all I need to think.
That's the little advantage that you see that needed to sway towards Story, that you're taking Story.
Yeah, because Tarec Saffedine loves to throw a lot of kicks. Well, now is he going to be thinking, oh, man,
I might bust open my leg.
Yeah.
What happens if he busts open his leg? Is it like a no contest?
If it was gnarly, a bad cut, depending on how early in the fight it happened, if it was right off the get-go, I'm assuming, it's on him. It's on him. If he fights with it and it opens up and it bleeds everywhere and it gets stopped, that's on him.
So he would get the loss for that?
He'd lose.
He'd lose. Okay, because I don't want to get into a situation where I have Rick Story on my cash team, and then after 30 seconds it's no contest and I get no points.
No.
I would equate it to, there's a guy in golf, Louis Oosthuizen. Great golfer, one of the top 20 guys in the world. But he pulls out of every third event with a neck injury. And if he pulls out, he screws your daily team.
Yeah, that's exactly it. And these are the kind of things that you can't estimate that this is going to happen going in.
No, you can't. But you have now given me a situation where that's in play, where he might open his cut, but the fact that he would lose right away, that'd be great for Story.
Yeah, exactly. Likewise, if you're a Saffedine guy, I'm thinking, ooh, is this guy going to pull a Louis and he's going to screw me because he's got some injury that I don't know about? In this case, it's like, Ricky's the guy that's been hurt in the past, but he's healthy now and he's good to go. Now you got Rick Story, good shape, ready to go. You got Tarec Saffedine, maybe he's in good shape or not, but mentally he's saying, when you say to somebody, I'm probably out of this fight, it's a bigger deal than you're letting off. If people say, oh, geez, you got a cut on your leg. No, I'm fine. That's what most guys do in his position. No, that's okay. Hey, I'm a fighter. Fighters fight. I'm going to go in there. I'm going to do it.
No, you say that fighters fight, they go in there and do that.
It's just the mentality.
I understand that.
That sounds cliche.
I understand it sounds cliche, but it's probably prevalent within the sport, too. You don't want to look like a pussy, basically.
That 100%
is what we're getting at here. But wouldn't it be worth him based on, what's his record? It's 16-4. So maybe the loss doesn't kill him. But wouldn't you want to make sure that you're fighting at 100% at this point? And even if you have to pull out, well, you know what? No one's going to care the next time I come fight because they wouldn't. Most people just forget that it would be worth it for him to pull out.
So he's actually in a very similar situation to Rick Story. He's got a similar story to Rick Story, is that he pulls out of everything because he's always hurt as well. So he's had 3 fights since he's joined the UFC 3 years ago. undoubtedly this guy who's from Belgium, living stateside. I think now he resides in California. Leaves California. He's training in Montreal with George St. Pierre and those guys at TriStar.
George St.
That's expensive, right? So I'm assuming at the end of the day, he's got to kind of get in there and fight as
Make
well.
some money.
Would it be a better option for him to pull out? Yeah, 100% it would be a better option. But problem number one, sorry. Problem number A, what am I saying? I got a problem. Issue number one is that you're not getting paid. Issue number two, the UFC starts to lose faith in you. Ooh, Tarek's pulled out of a bunch of fights now. You know what? We're not going to put him in a headliner or a co-main event because the chances of him pulling out and screwing the card are pretty likely. So now all of a sudden you're getting buried, and all of a sudden you're not getting the fights you want. Now all of a sudden you're not getting booked as often as you'd like to. So a part of you has to go in there. Matt Hughes, I don't want to say he created the mentality, but he famously was like, listen, man, I'm always hurt when I go to my fights. I've never been in a fight where I wasn't hurt going in, but this is the name of the game. And truthfully, once that adrenaline starts pumping through you, you don't feel these injuries regardless. So
no, it's not the fact that he would feel it, because it's not, a broken bone, it's not a fractured hand, it's something like that. It's a part of his body that gets split open.
Yeah.
And he doesn't really have a lot of control of that unless what you say, where he's tentative on some of those kicks with that leg or whatever he's doing, and that kind of takes him out of his game plan and puts him at a massive disadvantage.
And like I said, we're going by, this is inches, game inches. I mean, it's the smallest thing.
Yeah, but you need to find those small things.
Exactly, and that's exactly what it comes down to. Tarec Saffedine's best path to victory is he's got to move. In his last fight against Jake Ellenberger, he's winning the fight. He stays stationary. He eats a Jake Ellenberger right hand pat that he's out. He's basically out. You got a wicked poker face on him. Jake Ellenberger doesn't recognize it. The round ends. Otherwise, he's out. Two fights ago, he gets knocked out in the first round. 3 fights ago, it's a 5-rounder. In the 5th round, he gets knocked out again. But he's dancing.
So he's 0-3 in the UFC?
No. So he's dancing around, but the round ends. So he won his first fight, even though he was almost knocked out. He got knocked out in a second fight. He won his third fight, even though he almost got knocked out. And when he gets knocked out, 5th round against Hung Yu Lim his first time out. Second time, he was caught against Roy McDonald like he was almost frozen in the moment. And the third time against Jake Ellenberger, he just up against the cage. But what I'm saying is he's kind of chinny. How he fights that is the fact that he's got great movement. Now he's got this cut on his leg. It's like a broken pinky. Is the broken pinky really going to hurt him that much? No. But mentally, he's thinking, I got a broken pinky. I'm not going to move as much. If you don't move as much, you're standing in front of Rick Story. If you're standing in Rick Story, it's going to put you down. And for that reason, $9,700? Yeah, I'm going to play that. If this was a week ago and I didn't know about any of that, I avoided. $9,700? Yeah, sign me up.
Any quick finishes you see here? What's the most likely quick finish on the card?
Adam Milstead. Adam Milstead's a big boy, heavyweight, trains sometimes with Stipe Miocic, who recently just won the UFC heavyweight title. So he's got that confidence of knowing
Did we have Stipe on our team last time out?
On our cash game team.
It was great. He was like the throw-in guy.
$9,100.
No, $8,700 I think he was.
I was just like, good God. I just thought, yeah, it's
he 5-rounder.
He'd get some points. But hey, that's the beauty of it. Now Milstead's another guy that, like I mentioned, when you're training with the best guy on the planet, that's going to give you confidence. He's a big guy. He's physically very imposing. He's matching up with a guy, Chris De La Roca, 36 years old, 0-1 in the UFC. How did he lose his UFC debut? He got knocked out. How long did he last? 34 seconds. Who was he fighting? Some Polish guy with Daniel Malanchuk. Wasn't really known as a finisher. Adam Milstead is known as a finisher because he's so big and strong, Pat. He walks through the pocket, he eats 2, and he gives you 2. He can take them, you can't. He puts guys down. There's going to be a level eventually where he's going to himself get knocked out clean by doing that mentality.
But it's not here.
It ain't here. It shouldn't be here. Heavyweights be heavyweights. It ain't going to happen. But it shouldn't be here. Adam Milstead, he's reasonably priced considering he's not the most expensive guy.
10-7.
And I love this guy in cash game. I love him on GPP. He's like my starting point for a team because I'm high up on him in this spot.
Sterling Caraway. Sterling's what looks to be the biggest favorite on the card at -450. Why not him at 11,000?
Him finishing Bryan Caraway, I don't think is very not a very high percentage.
So he's going to win by decision, maybe in the 3rd round, something like that.
He seems to be the biggest lock on the card, just to
to
go
win.
out there and get a decision. He's got a wrestling background. He's got a fancy striking background. But in fights, he does not knock guys out standing.
He is not a daily fantasy scorer.
No,
because he's not going to win within 10 seconds.
I can see putting on a cash game because everyone's like, oh, he's really safe. He's really safe. But to be honest with you, Caraway's got some tricks up his sleeve as well. So even though Sterling is a safe pick, do I even like him on cash games? Not particularly. Although if I was going to play him, 100%, that's where I would play him.
We always try to find some value in the female fights because there's a lot of strikes thrown. They pile up fantasy points very quickly, even if the fight goes 3 rounds. We have Sara Mcmann versus Jessica Eye.
Jessica Evil Eye.
Oh, that's her name, the Evil Eye?
Yeah.
I like that. Is there any value in either of those two?
Yeah, I would say that there's some value in Jessica Ai.
$9,500.
Probably for a cash game purpose. With Sara McMann's a former silver medalist freestyle Olympic wrestling, right?
That sounds legit.
So super legit. She fights Ronda Rousey, and I was actually thinking that she's got a great chance of winning against Ronda because
I bet she didn't.
No, she got kneed in the body like a minute and a half in, and just like folded, and then that was like the beginning of the end. Because Sara McMann, if one thing that I love about her, work ethic for days, just like the mentality of I want to go and I want to do this, but career second place. She finished second place at the Olympics. She finished second place against Ronda Rousey. In her fights after that, I mean, she got smoked out by Amanda Nunes. She didn't look particularly good against Leslie Smith. There's been some issues with her, not Leslie, sorry, but there's been some issues with her, so to speak, that she's been in these spots where it's just like, she's not really coming through. Now she's in her mid-30s. She's always had a kid. That was always Mama Mcmann. That's a lot on somebody, to be honest with you. You're trying to take care of this kid. You're trying to pursue your own goals and your own aspirations. She initially was dating this, like, Olympic stud, like, good.
Johnny Mosley?
He died in a car accident.
Oh, and so not Johnny Mosley.
Right, and then her, like, secondary boyfriend, like, the guy that she got with later, like, I'm pretty sure he died in like a car accident as well. Like, she's had a lot of tragedy in her life, right? But she perseveres and she shows up and she's a gamer. And then she's competed her entire life. So you can tell she's taking these fights because what else is she going to do with her free time? This is who she is. This is what she does. I just think that as time's going by, she's a one-dimensional fighter. She did drop Miesha Tate with the right hand, correct. But she's a one-dimensional fighter in that she just likes to use her wrestling. So if you want to play her on DraftKings,
it's not a high percentage play in terms of points.
No, because she will 100% look to take you down and hold you there. And that's just something that I cannot risk.
So she's looking to win by decision.
She is 100%. I'm sure she, in her mind, wants to finish. But more cases than not, 100%, if she's going to win this fight, it's going to go decision. Now, since the sport's been popular, especially in the last couple of years, I mean, it's been popular for, like, say, 10 years. But in the last 2-3 years, Pat, takedown defense is the number one thing. So she's a one-dimensional fighter that only can take down fighters. Jessica Ai, she's a stand-up fighter who's actually getting pretty good at stuffing takedowns. Yeah, you can get her taken down, but her ground game's not bad. And that's how I see this one playing out. I think Mcmann's going to go out there. She might get a takedown. She might press for the takedown. But I will keep the fight standing. I will dance around. And once I does keep the fight standing, much faster hand speed. She's going to light her up. She's going to hit her. She's going to hurt her. Can she knock Sara McMann out? Yes. Will she? I'm leaning towards no, but it certainly is a possibility because as we saw with Mcmann versus Nunes, once the takedown got stuffed a couple times, mentally broken because you don't really have a plan B. So I think that would be the path to victory. I kind of put an asterisk next to her on my cash game because if I would play her, I would switch her in for Jeremy Stephens. But I decided to go with Stephens, just think he's a tad bit safer.
Before we get to the teams, let's go Chris Camozzi versus Vitor Miranda. Camozzi's a...
Camozzi.
Oh.
I have to give you a...
Wow, wow. I read it too quickly. So Camozzi.
Camozzi. Chris Camozzi.
Not Camozzi. Camozzi.
Camozzi.
Chris Camozzi. Is he Portuguese?
No.
He's just American? American-Italian guy?
He's from Denver.
Okay, fair enough. Anyway, he's a 2-1 underdog in this fight, but you like him.
Yeah, I like him, actually. Shocked that he's a 2-1 underdog, to be honest with you. This guy's a young guy. He's already had one tour of duty in the UFC in which he was released. But he proved his first time around, it's like, hey, this guy can hang. He just can't win. Then he goes to the regional scene, and it's like, oh, wow. This guy's like the best guy in the regional scene. He's killing everybody. It's like, wow, he's so young. He's 6'3" at 185 pounds.
How old was he when he came up the first time? Did his first debut?
He was on The Ultimate Fighter in like 2012. So
he would have been like 21 then?
He would have been like 22, 23 years old, right? And then 6'3", 185. All these guys at 185 are really strong. He's 6'3". He's kind of calling lanky. So they would just bully him around a little bit. He showed some flashes of promise. For the most part, he just because he wasn't ready. He would take whatever fight you'd offer him. You could offer him, hey, the champ's out and they need a replacement. Oh, in. This is like, well, maybe you shouldn't fight Jacare once, let alone twice. Like, I don't know what you're doing here. But it shows how much he has an eagerness to get in there with the best guys. And, yeah, he is making quite a few improvements in the gym. So, anyways, he gets bounced from the UFC, looks great on the regional scene, comes back to the UFC, smokes my boy Joe Riggs, smokes him. So I got to give him credit where it's credit's due. He's looking good. He's now like 28 years old. He's coming to his own. He knows how to use his size. Factory X Muay Thai in Colorado is one of my favorite gyms personally. I think he's just doing great things right now. Flip side of that, Vitor Miranda. Vitor Miranda, as we talked about one-dimensional guys, he's a one-dimensional guy. He's a 37-year-old former kickboxing champion from Brazil. Yeah, he's got some jiu-jitsu. He's got no wrestling. He's got some jiu-jitsu and some kickboxing. It served him well against low-level competition. Chris Camozzi, some people might believe he's low-level competition. That's a thing of the past, man. He's going to be able to get the takedown if he wants it. That's his path to victory. Get the takedown. If he does get it, he's going to punch him out. Or he'll choke him out. He'll get the finish. If he doesn't go for the takedown, I think he's just going to break him down because when you're young and you train 10,000 feet above sea level, you don't get tired. When you're 37-year-old Brazilian, you get tired.
Why do more people not train in Denver or Mexico City or something like that?
It's expensive. You know what I mean?
I mean, how expensive can Denver be?
Well, I mean, a lot of guys, for example, Denver has a bunch of mega gyms, Factory X, Muay Thai, Grudge Training Center. Like, they do have gyms out there. Even this Elevation Fight Team where TJ Dillashaw and these guys left their gyms and went to a gym over in Colorado.
It makes a lot of sense.
The Olympic Training Center is in Colorado, right? These are all added benefits, all the sea level. The one thing I'm told this, I don't know this for sure, apparently when you come down from sea level, 3 days later, your body regulates itself out. So you need to be literally taking these fights within the week. You know what I mean? Like, he lives there all year round. So he's going to get the effect all year round.
I don't know if
I think going there for 8 weeks doesn't help out.
I don't know if that's true or not. Like Lance Armstrong, noted cheater Lance Armstrong, but like when
everybody was cheating.
But
he was better than the cheaters.
Yeah, he was the best cheater of all time. Yeah. He really was. Or Barry Bonds, one of the two. But when he would go train for the Tour de France, he would go to Colorado and just bike around the mountains. And
that seems like the move.
And like your lungs can't take in as much air when you're up there. Like it instead of lifting weights or doing that sort of training, it's training on like your organs basically to get them ready for like less oxygen and everything like that, so that when you get propped back in, and maybe it does change after 3 days, but it would seem strange that everyone would go there and train if it gave you no advantage.
That's just what I'm told. They're saying, oh, well, your body tends to regulate itself. But I have never seen guys in terrible shape than when fight cards are in Colorado or in Mexico City because, oh, boy, these guys that are cardio machines go there and they can't get out of 2 rounds.
Yeah, you think if you were fighting in those places and you knew ahead of time, that's where you'd go and train for 2 months or something.
You have to go like 8 weeks out or something in order for your body because, the first like week you're there, you're like, oh, God, what have I got myself into? But eventually you'll train yourself.
It's like how I do my cardio, that before I go on like the treadmill and do some sprints, I have like 3 cigs in a row.
You got to open your lungs up.
Yeah, and just clog up those lungs. I'm like, oh, I got to power through this. Just get my lungs all tough.
Yeah, I can't name them by name because I'm sure there's like, why would you tell people that? But like, I know UFC fighters that smoke. Now, whether it's a full-time thing, probably not. But when they go out and they're having a good time, they're having to smoke.
So best time to have cigs.
But with Chris Camozzi, not smoking, and unless he's smoking Chris Camozzi, but no cigs in this guy's mouth. And I just think cardio is going to be the key here. Cardio, takedowns. If you're not going to use the takedowns, smother this guy against the fence and give him hell. Vitor Miranda, I could see people putting on GPP because he is a knockout machine. But once again, if you're going to be a knockout machine, you got to knock out guys that are susceptible to knockout. Chris Camozzi, he could take it, and he will. He'll take it in order to get his path to victory, which is take this guy to deep waters.
Let's talk cash team right now. Give it
money.
To me.
Okay, cash money. Abel Trujillo, most expensive guy on the card. I want to ask you about this, actually. Being that he's the most expensive guy in the card, does that make him the most play guy in the card? Or do people typically avoid the guy because, biggest price tag on the card, I don't want him?
I find it depends on the card. Now, if it's the same people playing daily fantasy MMA every single week, it depends on how the guys at the bottom are. What does the rest of your team look like if you take a guy that's 11-2? Now, obviously, you've put on Camozzi, who's 8,900. You feel good about that.
Love it.
Others might not feel as good about that, or anyone else down in that range. So what they would probably do is say, you know what? I can't quite squeeze him on, but there's someone at 9,400 that I like, and they drop down to Sterling. That would be my guess.
That makes total sense. I went with Abel Trujillo. I'm not going to lie. We'll get to the GPP in a bit. I wanted Alberto Uda on it originally, but couldn't end up affording it. So go Abel Trujillo, 11,200. Once again, this guy is more of a GPP play just because if he's going to finish you, if he's going to fight you, he's going balls to the walls, Pat. He's swinging.
So he could lose.
He could lose. His opponent's taking the fight on like a week and a half notice. His opponent is not UFC caliber. He's lost on the regional scene to much smaller guys. He is a smaller guy. Typically fights at 145. He tried out for the Ultimate Fighter season 15 and got smoked out by Joe Proctor. He's just not. He doesn't seem to be on the same level. However, he's a wrestler and he's kind of a gritty guy. That's the path to victory to being Abel Trujillo. So do I love this on cash game? I'm not gonna lie.
Don't love it.
I don't love it on a cash game team. He's more of a GPP play.
Now,
but I can't afford all the stuff I want on my GPP team with him, so it didn't make sense.
If you wanted to, you could drop down to Sterling for cash, because ownership doesn't mean anything in cash. You could have, if the guy is going to be 100% owned, but you think that he's going to win, you should have him on your team. GPP, it's a little bit different. You need to kind of play the percentages, try to find a low-owned upset guy, something like that. But in cash games, percentage owned doesn't really matter. So would you feel better with Sterling, knowing that he's probably just going to win?
If I turn on the TV and the Sterling fight's starting and I got him on my team, I'm like, okay, I'm guaranteed 40, 50 points.
So why don't we make that switch?
Fair switch.
Let's switch off. We'll go. What's it? Trujillo?
Trujillo.
Damn it.
You had it before the show
I
started.
know.
You were not even allowed to practice before, and you got the one.
Well, I
and you
saw
got
it.
it right.
I
and you
walked
got
by.
it right.
I saw it on the screen. I was like,
Yeah.
there it is.
Blow it.
So we'll make that switch then to Sterling just because it's safer for a cash team. Doesn't matter how much he's owned.
Okay, I like that. I like Sterling. Adam Milstead, this is the guy. In terms of the way I'm thinking about this,
Yeah.
I love him on my team. Moving on from that, Rick Story, $9,700, as we talked about. It's more of this leg laceration, but he had a great chance of winning the fight to begin with, so it's not like we're only banking on that.
Camozzi's on the team, but tell me a little bit about Jeremy Stevens.
Jeremy Little Heathen Stevens. This guy was the first bet that I ever won in my entire betting career. He was fighting Joe Lozon, who looks like a crackhead, especially back then. And I bet Joe Lozon. It was $100 and a pizza. I was like, there's no way Joe Lozon loses to Jeremy Stevens. Joe Lozon beats him. So that was a good time. But I learned a lot of respect for this Jeremy Stevens. Good guy, swings for the fences, 155 pounds. Since then, he was a good, entertaining guy at 155. He furthermore drops down to 145, and now I think he's shining a little bit. He's not the best guy in the division. He'll lose to the best guys in the division, but he'll go the distance with them. He's durable, he's tough, he's gritty, power for days, the kind of guy that you want on your team. Renan Barao, former UFC champion at 135 pounds. Now he's starting to have weight cutting troubles. Now he's starting to have concussion problems. Now he's just like, you know what? I can't comfortably make... He's sucking so much water out of his body that by the time he fights, you dehydrate your body, you also dehydrate your brain. So little shots tend to put you down a lot more because your brain's not hydrated. It turns off a lot easier. So now he's getting knocked out, and in fights he should be winning, he's losing. And in fights that he should be killing the guy, he's looking mediocre. And now all of a sudden it's like, okay, a guy that's never been knocked out in his career has now been knocked out twice and did not look good against Mitch Gagnon, a local Canadian guy from Sudbury.
Mitch Gagnon!
From Sudbury.
Winner, Gagnon!
Winner, Gagnon. Mitch Gagnon wins one round off of him and then, is taking him to the brink and ends up beating him in the third. But needless to say, we've got a Renan Barao who I feel safe saying he's damaged goods at this point. The biggest key here is that we got Renan Barao, who's a former 35er, who's like, I can't make the weight no more. I'm going to come up to 45.
Against a 155er coming down.
Yeah, so Jeremy Stevens is a big dude. And I think when you're Renan Barao, it's like, how did I have success in the past? Bullying guys. I get in their face, and I hit them, and I hurt them, and I kick them. And his biggest wins are against Uriah Faber, and he bullied Uriah Faber both times. Jeremy Stevens does not get bullied, mostly because he is a bully, and he's a way bigger bully, and his punches probably got more power. They're not as crisp and technique, but he's just got power for days. So Renan Barao's going to go in there and be like, I'm going to bully this guy. He's going to get in there, and he's going to realize real quick the guy's not moving backwards. When he hits me, it's hurting me a lot. I've been knocked out a couple times, and I just don't think he's going to be able to have the same game plan. Is this safe? No. And the fact that I have it on a cash game would suggest it's safe. He is the underdog in this fight. But for $9,300...
There's value there.
Yeah, I have to play that.
Let's talk about your GPP roster. It's somewhat similar. We talked about Almeida. We talked about Story. We talked about Camozzi. We talked about Milstead. Tell me about Alberto Uda.
Alberto Uda, one of your typical Brazilian guys. Typical Brazilian record where for the most part it's ballooned up. He does got a win over Thiago Perpetuo, who used to fight in the UFC. So
I like that his height is question mark.
I know. I think he's 6'1", but I can't even confirm that. So question mark's probably the good way to go on that. But when you watch tape on him, he just bowls through. He's a Muay Thai champion, right? He literally, from Brazil, moved to Thailand, spent some time in Thailand, won a one-night tournament in Muay Thai, comes back to Brazil, 9-0 in his MMA career. And when he beats guys, apparently he's decent on the ground, but mostly boxing is at a distance. Use your hands, right? Muay Thai is more kicks and knees and elbows.
So you have to be in close.
All the way out or all the way in. You're either all the way out throwing kicks or you're all the way in trying to throw knees and elbows. This guy is all the way in, and I think that's the way to beat Jake Collier. Jake Collier is 1-2 in the UFC. The one win, split decision in a really close fight. Both losses, knocked out. And it wasn't just knocked out like, man, the heat of the battle and he got knocked out. The first one, he blocks a head kick, and even though he blocked it, the rattling of his brain, he just does the jitterbug and then just goes down and says oh no. And his next fight is the same thing. He's on the ground. He's just getting hit with some I don't want to say light ground and pound because the guy he's fighting is nicknamed the Ox. But Dong Yang is not very good, and Dong Yang is putting it on this guy. And that's the moment I realized, they call him the prototype. You don't think he's getting any better. He's prototypical MMA fighter, but prototypical is... Average. You're not great in any one element. He's not a great wrestler. He's not a great grappler. He's not a great stand-up guy. He's just mediocre in every element. And because he's not getting better in any element, that's what you're going to get out of him. Uda will just walk in, he'll grab a hold of that tie clench, he'll knee him a couple times, and whereas against most guys, that's not good enough, against Jake Collier, that's more than all you need. Because you just got to hit him a couple times, and I don't think his chin's going to hold up. So, once again, can Collier win? Absolutely. I think Uda puts him down. I think Uda puts him down in 1 or 2, and for that, GPP, lots of points, all in on that.
Cody Saftik. Check him out every week on the Bookie Beatdown, which you can follow on Twitter at Bookie_Beatdown and follow on the YouTube page up on the Fight Network channel, along with my co-host of Fantasy Bachelor and Fantasy Challenge, Paul Shaughnessy. Turns out he's pretty good at MMA too. I'm Pat Mayo. You can follow me at the PME. And remember, subscribe to the Pat Mayo Hour on YouTube and iTunes and Roku and Amazon Fire Stick and Xbox under the Pat Mayo Hour. If you want audio versions, they're out there too. I'm Pat Mayo, and I'll see you next time.
For the latest expert fantasy sports strategy and tips on YouTube, click subscribe. You can also follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and call your local cable TV provider to order Fantasy Sports Network, or watch us on Roku, Apple TV, Amazon Fire, and Xbox.